I roll. No, really, that's what Volvo means in Swedish. And they must be rolling, because on the inside of this 40, maybe 50 lakh rupee Volvo EX30, they've given you a trip meter, which we've just reset at the start of our drive to give you a real world range figure at the end of our drive, but that's pretty normal. What's not so normal is that you only get one big central display and nothing in front of you as a driver. No speedometer, no heads-up display, nothing at all. And in this entire cabin, there are 12 buttons, 9 of which are on the steering wheel and don't really count. And of the other 3, one is for lock, one is for unlock, and the final one is only there because instead of having 4 window switches up front, you have only 2. And to control the rear windows, you need to press a touch sensitive thing that says rear, and then you can control the rear windows. Why? And then there is the performance. But you know what? Let's just test that out as well. We'll put the rest on the screen. Volvo claims 5.7 seconds to 100. Let's find out exactly how quick it is in the real world. 3, 2, 1, go. Slightly slow and a little bit of sand. 5.73 seconds with a slow launch and a little bit of sand in the start is actually really very good, and honestly in the real world it feels very fast. Let's say for example you're at 60 kmph and you want to go for a quick overtake, throttle down and you're at 70, 80, 90 and 100. That's insanely quick. I would have liked more bite from the brakes though. The brakes feel a little soft, and even when I start to press the pedal pretty hard, it doesn't really have that real nice bite that some European cars have, which is a bit of a miss, especially considering how fast this thing goes. But this acceleration is just... Now that we have the 0 to 100 out of the way and you know how fast it is, this is actually not even the fastest EX30 that they make, because this is the single motor rear wheel drive with the extended battery. So this is the one that's optimized for range. Outside they have a dual motor one, 3.8 seconds I think, and that's really quick. So if this is feeling fast at 5.7, 3.8 is probably overkill for India. The claimed range therefore is 480 kilometers, and we're testing that out as well, trying to drive the EX30 as much as possible in the short amount of time that we have, with a real world range figure at the end of the video. For now though, the name iRoll or Volvo comes from the history of being part of a ball bearing manufacturing company. But it turns out that company was better at making cars than making smooth ball bearings, and thankfully the EX30 is a smooth car, because when you go through bumps and potholes, especially the smaller stuff, the car just glides over it very smoothly. You barely notice it in the cabin. However, if you hit a very deep pothole or a very long bad patch of road, then you do feel a thud and the car does move around a bit, but it's pretty much never unsettled or deeply uncomfortable. It's fine, you won't have any complaints, and you won't have any complaints about the seat either. In fact, all you'll have is praise, because this is a really well sculpted seat, one that you can spend hours and hours in just driving along. It's a very nice place to be. Of course, you will especially appreciate these things if you're a little bit on the older side, but if you're on the younger side, maybe a little bit hot-blooded and like to push your car into corners, well then the EX30 suspension isn't made up of jelly. It actually holds its own really well, and it's actually really fun to drive. It's youthful in its looks as well. Funky headlights, funky taillights, and thankfully the lines are still clean and timeless on the outside. But with just how complicated some of the stuff is inside the cabin, you will need a millennial to help you operate it. Let's take the adjustment of the side view mirrors for example. And while we're at it, why don't we test that out as well? So here's me adjusting the side view mirrors in a regular car. And now here's me adjusting the side view mirrors on the Volvo EX30. So you press the car button on the main screen, then you press mirrors, and then your steering controls are the controls for your mirrors. I do ask myself the question as to how often someone is going to be changing their mirrors, especially if it's a car that's just going to primarily be driven by one person.
but then it's also not clever to create solutions for problems that didn't really exist in the first place. So yeah, this not exactly a deal breaker. Also the window switches, how often are you really operating the rear windows? I mean, me for example, very often when I do operate the rear windows, it's only when I actually want to operate the front windows and I click the rear switches by mistake. So I don't think these two are a deal breaker for me, but what is a deal breaker is not having a speedometer or even a heads-up display. For a company that's hell-bent on safety, the fact that I have to look away from the road and away from what's going on in front of me to do pretty much anything, I think that's a step back in terms of safety. Let me give you an example. This stock controls the wipers as well as the headlights and the indicators, which is all well and good. But if I indicate left, the stock comes back to the center, and obviously even if I indicate right, it comes back to the center unlike most other indicator stocks. And then my only frame of reference for whether the indicator is on or not is a small icon on the screen and a really, really low sound which you cannot hear with music playing. So you might end up driving for kilometers on end with the indicator on, and that's just a really, really small example.
It is a good screen though, if that helps. It's responsive, and since the software is designed by software giant Google, it is very easy to operate, which is important because you will be operating it a lot. There's also neat integrations like predicted battery level at your destination on Google Maps. I love that.
I'm 5 feet 11 inches by the way, and the driver's seat is adjusted to my driving position, and as you can probably tell, this is not a place where you want to be spending too much time. Unless of course the you in question is 7 years old and trying to convince mom and dad to buy a new car, in which case this is great.
No, seriously, if you're thinking about buying the EX30 for its rear seat alone, you're better off leaving this car alone, because as an adult, the rear seat position is very knees up. There's no AC vents back there and not even an armrest. Rare trips with 4 adults should be just about okay, and your kids won't complain. In fact, they will be pretty comfortable and might even appreciate the 2 Type-C ports and neat bits like the smartphone holders in the seat pockets.
It's actually a really well thought out interior. For example, they've removed the speakers from the doors and given you a very large storage space that's lined in the same soft touch material as the one on the seats. It's also got this recycled material going all across the cabin. It's a bit love it or hate it. I personally don't mind it. I think it's actually done really well, but some people don't really like it. There's also a different material. I don't think they're selling that on the India spec car, but that is actually made up of recycled jeans and is called like a denim blue insert or something like that. Really well done. There's actually a lot of sustainable materials used both inside and outside and in the construction of the car. And the EX30 is actually the Volvo with the lowest carbon footprint ever. Pretty much everything in this cabin looks nice, feels nice, solidly built. There's a big central glove box, which is basically another thing that Volvo will not have to rejig when going from right-hand drive to left-hand drive countries, which again benefits in cost cuttings. There's also stuff like cup holders which retract out. You can have 2, you can have 1, you can have none. You can also make this into a storage that's not cup holders. So they've really, they've thought of pretty much everything. There's storage down here. You can open it for some more storage. There's a wireless charging pad here. And honestly, one of the most well thought out wireless charging pads, because if you put your phone just like this, it's going to slide around the moment you turn the steering wheel. But it's got these rubber things. So you slide your phone down and it just catches the phone and just presses it hard against the wireless charging pad. So you're always charging and your phone never moves. Really well thought out interior. I just hope they thought of giving me a speedometer as well.
You're welcome. Welcome to ask the question that while sure, the EX30 looks good, drives well, is comfortable and has a well thought out cabin, but who even buys a Volvo today?
Nobody, really. Maruti Suzuki probably sells more of a single car's single variant than all of Volvo sales put together. But the people who buy these cars are actually very interesting people. They're often very smart, very knowledgeable, very cultured, and very measured. They're the kind of people who wouldn't leave their house without a wind cheater if they saw so much as a small grey cloud in an otherwise clear sky. They're the kind of people who would always wear the right protection, and they're the kind of people who would probably not even be watching this video because they're right now sitting next to a beautiful lake reading a book about why gardening is great for the cardiovascular system or something like that.
Speaking of protection though, like Volvo since basically forever, the EX30 takes safety rather more seriously than just NCAP ratings, which by the way it has scored a full 5 stars in. There's a mix of long-range radars, ultrasonic sensors and cameras in the ADAS suite. And there's also unique Volvo additions like a soft engine cover and seats that are specially designed to reduce whiplash injuries.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're at the end of our trip, which means the real world range figure you all have been waiting for. We've done 150.7 kilometers in total. We have 93 kilometers of range still left with 23% of the battery. And yes, that totals to a real world range figure of 240 kilometers. But don't worry, it's not as bad as it sounds, because as you can probably tell from this graph here, there is a lot of red going on, which means really fast driving. Of course, we've had to do it for the shoot, and we've also had to drive it a little bit fast to get here on time to catch our flight later in the evening. So by the current calculation, the real world range figure goes to 266. But don't worry, in the first half of the day when we were driving a little bit more sedately, the range was more like 370, 380 kilometers. So I would say in mixed conditions, you should be able to get 350 kilometers, especially in the city. If you drive it a little bit more conservatively, you should be able to get a little bit more. And if you drive it like me, you'll get about 250 kilometers.
So, who should roll up to a Volvo dealership to buy one of these? Well, if you're between 30 to 45 years of age, maybe a little bit younger if you made some money early on in life, and you don't have kids, or you have very young kids that don't mind chilling in the back seat while you drive yourself in a fast, comfortable, premium electric SUV, then this is genuinely awesome. On the inside, it feels a lot more special than something like a Hyundai Ioniq 5. It's definitely better value for money than a Mercedes Benz EQA. And yes, if rear seat comfort is what you're after, then I'd strongly suggest taking a look at the BMW iX1 long wheelbase. But for everything else, as it often turns out in life, the X really is the best choice. I couldn't go the entire video without making a single X reference. Thank you for watching PowerDrift. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the extended cut of the EX30 review. We'll start with some styling. I'm still figuring out how to use this Osmo. I actually really like the way this looks. There's some neat details here like the air curtains that flow through, and I really like these headlights. They look more in line with the Volvo concepts and their latest cars than some of the other cars in their lineup, more expensive cars. I really like the frameless mirrors as well. It makes regular car mirrors look very old comparatively. No like flush door handles going on here, but this is also a nice angle of the car. It looks pretty low. It doesn't look like an SUV, definitely more hatchback than SUV. You get EX30 branding here and a really neat Volvo lit up thing here. I'll show you the boot also while we're at it. It's about 360 liters, but it's a nice big boot. We've stuffed it full of bags, and there's some neat stuff inside where you can make the tray go further down or further up depending on how you want it. It's pretty nice. We'll move on to the inside, but before we get to that, let me take the key out. This is where one of the problems is. So this is the key card. Now the car's locked right now, but even though this key can fit in your wallet, it can't stay in your wallet because every time you need to unlock the car, you need to tap it on the driver's side door. So even the passenger side door does not have the NFC reader for this. So I think that is problem number one with this key. Problem number two happens when you get inside, because the key must be placed on this exact spot. It has to be placed here if you want to start the car. Otherwise, it will not start. If once it's started, you can remove the key from here. But if you want to start the car and drive the car, the key has to be here. And that means that you cannot use the wireless charging pad. Because this is not a wireless charging pad. So this, I think it's just, I don't know. I don't get how they didn't think this through. The wireless charging pad though is really awesome. I love this holder, extra holder that they have. It's really well done. If you're wondering what this is basically a bunch of sensors. You can probably see them flashing on the camera as well. It's a way to monitor the driver and see if he's paying attention, he or she is paying attention to the road or the driving, and it warns you if you're being a little naughty and not paying attention to the road. And especially if you start to look at the screen, it warns you and tells you not to do things on the screen and to look ahead with. So why did you give me everything then on the screen, right? I don't get it. Really nice thing is that you don't have a start-stop button. So you get into the car, make sure the key is in that correct position, and then you just put the car into drive and it moves. And every time you put the car into park, it obviously goes into park and it unlocks all the doors. So I think those are really nifty features and just makes the getting in and out, driving in and like process very easy, very simple. There is a glass roof on the EX30 and there is no sun blind. So I mean, it is tinted and right now it's actually very gloomy, so you can't really tell. But I'm sure like in peak heat in the afternoon, there will be some amount of heat that's coming into the cabin. Quickly move on to the back seat to show you what space is like. So this is what the space looks like. It already looks fairly cramped. And then when you get in, I mean, this is like super duper knees up. I mean, this is like the third row of some cars. It's really very knees up. The headroom is not bad, like I do have a lot of space and that's fine, but the position of it being knees up is just, it does not work. You do get some storage here that's removable as well. So you have this thing that's removable and it has this sort of Easter egg of a moose and stuff around. There's also a Swedish flag here on the seat, if I can tap to focus. Anyways, you can probably see it, it's here, this flag here. And yeah, that's about it from our review of the EX30. Hopefully we've covered pretty much everything in the car. And let us know what you guys think about the video. Of course, subscribe to PowerDrift for more such content. And let us know what you guys think about the EX30.